Chapter 41. Trust you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 41. Trust Fanya packed up her things and went home. She bumped into Hifeng at the door. Why are you standing here? Aren't you going in? Fanya looked at Hifeng with some confusion. I have something to tell you. Hifeng looked like he wanted to say something but stopped himself. Fanya saw his expression and knew that this was important. She nodded and said, "Walk with me." The two of them walked along the riverbank not far away. For a moment, they were silent. Fanya was not in a hurry. She knew that Hifeng was not a hesitant person. He must have found it difficult to talk about this matter. After a long time, Hifeng seemed to have finally gotten rid of his hesitation. I have a mission that might require me to go abroad for 2 years. Fanya stood still and looked at Hifeng silently. Can you? Hifeng frowned and gritted his teeth before saying, "Can you marry me? Before I leave?" Fanya did not answer immediately. Hifeng quickly added, "I'm not just looking for a stable place for Hifeng. I think you're really suitable for me." Fanya saw Hifeng's anxious look and could not help but laugh. Yes. I'm willing. Hifeng wanted to say something else, but Fanya reached out and held his hand. I know what you're thinking. I would be more than happy to take care of Hifeng. It has not been long, but we get along very well. Even if I don't marry you, I'll take good care of him, Fanya continued. So, I'll marry you only because I'm willing. After saying that, Fanya's gaze was fixed on Hifeng's face. Hifeng's slightly tanned face suddenly turned red. He was a person who was used to wandering outside. Even if he was already married and had children, he did not have much time to develop a relationship with his ex-wife. This was the first time Hifeng had expressed his feelings so directly. Fanya looked at Hifeng's somewhat embarrassed look and immediately thought that he was a little cute. Don't worry, I will take good care of you. Hifeng gave his promise somewhat stiffly. I believe in you. Fanya's smile became even sweeter and gentler, causing Hifeng to be stunned for a moment. After confirming each other's feelings, Hifeng felt a lot more at ease. He realized that he had been able to successfully solve his recent cases after chatting with Fanya. Each time, Fanya would inspire him with a brand new angle to think about, allowing the progress of the case to suddenly take off. Hifeng did not want to think about the reason behind this. He only firmly believed that Fanya had a somewhat magical touch when it came to solving cases. Fanya, I might not be able to keep in touch with you when I go abroad this time. Hifeng held Fanya's hand and gripped it affirmatively. Fanya nodded. I understand. Fanya already knew precisely why Hifeng had to go. It was precisely because of this very incident that led to her hellish experiences in her previous life. Hifeng, if you believe me, Fanya hesitated. She did not know if she would make Hifeng think that she was a lunatic by saying this. Hifeng looked at Fanya seriously. Tell me. I believe you. Hifeng's trust gave Fanya some comfort. She turned to face Hifeng. I can't tell you how I know this, but please believe me, the person you're looking for is not in America. When Hifeng heard Fanya's words, he was first taken aback, but excitement quickly replaced that sensation. His hunch was right, Fanya really knew. He looked at Fanya seriously, his eyes wide open to capture the slightest change in her expression. Then can you tell me where the person I'm looking for is? Fanya's expression became a little awkward. She paused before saying, I'm not sure now. I only know that he will appear in Port City in 3 months. Hifeng looked at Fanya's expression. After a long while, he let out a sigh of relief. I believe you. I will send someone else to Port City to keep an eye on him. Bnoel.m. Thank you for telling me what you know. Hifeng thanked her sincerely. Fanya was a little nervous. Do you really believe me? Hifeng grabbed Fanya's hand tightly. I believe you, just like you believe me. Hearing Hifeng's words, Fanya's tense heart finally relaxed. Although the two of them had their own thoughts, they still had trust in each other and enjoyed the rare opportunities where they could spend time together. The next day, He-Fong and Fang-Ye rushed to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get their marriage certificate. The two of them went home and had a simple meal with their family. The marriage was considered official. Although everything was simple, it was still a little too simple. He-Fong secretly swore in his heart that after this case was over, he would definitely give Fang-Ye a perfect wedding. Chapter 42. Did you get married? You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 42. Did you get married? The day after He-Fong and Fang-Ye got married, he went to the United States with his team. Although Fang-Ye had given He-Fong a direction to investigate, they still had to make this trip to the United States. This case was not their only concern. A few police officers who had been assisting in the case in the United States have encountered accidents, one after another. After He-Fong left, Fang-Ye continued to bask in the same pace of life every day. She liked the quiet life now. It was much better than her previous life, where she was constantly on the run for her life. In her previous life, she had almost spent her whole life working hard for money. However, in the end, she ended up on a hospital bed. She had no money to cure her illness and could only wait for death. In this life, she wanted to live an open life, but she also wanted to live a carefree life. Ever since the last time she stood up for Fang-Ye, little Wang seemed to have treated her differently. She suddenly followed Fang-Ye around all day long, greeting and treating her very affectionately. Sister Nyo occasionally heard little Wang's slightly whiny voice, and she could not help but smooth out the goosebumps that sprouted all over her skin. Fang-Ye sat in front of the computer, typing. Recently, there had been a lot of people submitting children's household applications. It was probably because of the recent census that those illegal households had to surface. Fang-Ye was so busy that she could not raise her head. Little Wang came to her side with a glass of water. Sister Ye, come, drink some water and rest for a while. Fang-Ye turned her head and smiled at little Wang. Thank you. I'll drink it later. After saying that, Fang-Ye turned her head and continued to work. Little Wang stood at the side and said, Arg. This work is endless. Don't tire yourself out. Fang-Ye nodded repeatedly, but she did not seem to hear her. Little Wang was about to speak when Sister Nyo stopped her. Wang Su. Let Sister Ye work. If you disturb her like this, she won't be able to get off work today. Wang Su looked at Sister Nyo with an aggrieved expression. I just don't want her to overwork herself. You're being so attentive. You must have other motives. Sister Nyo looked at Wang Su with an understanding look. Wang Su shrunk her neck and stuck out her tongue. Look, among us, only Sister Ye knows how to use a computer and can type so fast. I'm not asking her to teach me. If she takes time off to have a child in the future, I can take over. Wang Su said with a laugh. Time off to have a child. When Sister Nyo heard that, her voice rose 2 octaves higher. She walked to Fang-Ye's side. Little Fang, you have a child. Fang-Ye looked up at Sister Nyo in a daze. Her face was blank. Although she was looking at Sister Nyo, Fang-Ye's hand did not stop. She was too focused on the work at hand and did not catch what Sister Nyo meant. Seeing her stunned expression, Sister Nyo and Wang Su immediately laughed out loud. Sister Ye, if you were to be seen like this outside, people would probably think that you are slow to react. Wang Su did not hide her smile. Fang-Ye finally came back to her senses and said to Sister Nyo, Sister Nyo, what did you say just now? Sister Nyo smiled and looked at Fang-Ye. I mean, you're pregnant. Why didn't you tell us? Fang-Ye's expression became even more confused. Pregnant? Who? Any? What's there? Sister Nyo could not help but roll her eyes. Wang Su quickly went up and explained, Sister Ye and Captain He are getting married. It's just a matter of time before they have a child. Eh. You and Captain He are getting married. Sister Nyo's tone rose up again. Fanya nodded and then shook her head. We're already married. Already married. This time, it was Wang Su's turn to be surprised. When did this happen? Yesterday. Fanya said matter-of-factly. This time, Sister Nyo and Wang Su stared at Fanya. Why didn't you tell us? Fanya frowned slightly. We just got certificates. This is a happy occasion. Why didn't you tell us? Sister Nyo could not help but nag. So we can celebrate for you too. Yeah. You're getting married to Captain He. This is a big happy occasion. Wang Su could not help but complain. Fanya smiled helplessly. He has something to do overseas, so we wanted to get the certificate first. Seeing Fanya acting like she had done something wrong, Sister Nyo could not help but frown. You look like we're forcing you to get married. We don't plan to have a big wedding. It's just a second marriage, so, Fanya said with a helpless smile. So what if it's a second marriage? You're a member of our neighborhood committee. Captain He is not losing out by marrying you. Wang Su snorted unhappily. I didn't expect Captain He to be such a man. In Wang Su's heart, He Feng's image plummeted. Fanya looked at Wang Su's way of defending her injustice, and her heart felt warm. Fanya knew that Sister Nyo and Wang Su were both thinking of her. However, for her, the form of marriage was not important. The person she was with was the most important. Chapter 43. Li Tong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 43. Li Tong. Over the next few months, there was no news from He Feng. Fanya went to work every day and took care of her two children. Fortunately, Xiao Xiang was around to help Fanya take care of the children. With the help of Lawyer Lin, Wu Wei's matter was concluded with a relatively satisfactory result. The money that had to be paid back would be paid back, but the part that exceeded the legal standard became the portion that exempted him from liability. Because he had been lured into the gambling game, although there was no evidence that Tang Fu had participated in it, Wu Wei had also received a certain amount of liability relief as a victim. Wu Wei seemed to have changed into a different person. From time to time, he would bring some things home, visit Xiao Xiang, and bring some delicious food to the children. Although Fanya and Wu Wei did not share a harmonious relationship, they were not downright hostile. For Fanya, this was fine. She would occasionally think of He Feng and yearn to know where he was and how he was doing. But because of the special nature of his work, Fanya knew that she could only endure it. For months later, when Fanya was working, Wang Su suddenly ran over and asked her to meet someone in the conference room. Fanya was a little surprised, but she followed Wang Su to the conference room. Although it was called a conference room, it was actually a lounge. There was a big desk and a few office chairs in the conference room. Other than that, there was nothing else. Fanya walked into the conference room and saw a man in a police uniform sitting there. At that moment, Fanya's heart skipped a beat. The man slowly turned around and looked at Fanya. You're Fanya. Fanya nodded, and the nervousness in her heart grew. She was afraid that what she had been most worried about would happen. She was once certain that He Feng would become the hero she knew in her previous life. But as she got along with He Feng, she was afraid that everything would change because of her rebirth. Sometimes, she would think that she had experienced a rebirth. Everything around her was developing in a good direction. But would her new actions change the new future? After all, she had been so unfortunate in the past, but in this life, she had been given too much happiness. She was very afraid that He Feng would have to pay for her surplus. The man stood up and walked in front of Fanya, saluting, Hello. I'm He Feng's colleague, my name is Li Tong. Fanya looked at Li Tong's face, and after a moment, she replied in a daze, Hello. I'm Fanya. Li Tong looked at Fanya and nodded slightly, I'm here because He Feng entrusted me, when Fangya heard Li Tong's words, the anxiety in her heart did not decrease but instead increased. Fangya knew that her voice sounded a little shaky. Is he alright? Li Tong was stunned for a moment before she realized what had happened and said, "Ah. He's fine. Did I scare you? I'm sorry." When she heard Li Tong's words, Fangya almost fell to the ground in an instant. Wang Su, who had been standing at the side the whole time, saw the situation and quickly went forward to support Fangya. She glared at Li Tong angrily. Li Tong looked at Wang Su innocently and then said to Fangya, "I'm sorry. I should have stated my purpose of coming here first." Fangya shook her head and said with a smile, "It's good that he's okay. He was indeed injured a few days ago. It's not serious." Li Tong seemed to be afraid of scaring Fangya again, so he quickly added a second line. "The injury is on his shoulder, so he can't come back for the time being," Li Tong added. "So, before I came back, he repeatedly reminded me that I must come back to tell you that he's safe." Li Tong had a smile on his face, as if he was trying to comfort Fangya. Fangya nodded. "Thank you for your hard work." "Of course." The smile on Li Tong's face deepened. "Feng always said that you're a gentle person, so it's true." Fangya listened to Li Tong's words and smiled stiffly. Wang Su crossed her arms and stood in front of Fangya. "Hey! Stay away. You're blocking the air circulation." Li Tong looked at Wang Su's disdainful expression and appeared to be a little disappointed. Fangya gently patted Wang Su's arm and smiled at her. "I'm fine." Wang Su finally calmed down. She sat beside Fangya and did not leave her side. She looked at Li Tong warily, as if Li Tong was here to plot against Fangya. Fangya looked at the two of them and suddenly found it funny. She said to Li Tong, "Come over for dinner sometime. He Ping should really want to see you." Li Tong nodded. "Okay, sister. Law. I also have something to tell He Ping." Fangya nodded and then said to Wang Su, "Little Wang, come over for dinner today. Let Li Tong tell you about Captain He's heroic deeds." When Wang Su heard that, her eyes immediately lit up. "Can I?" Fangya turned to look at Li Tong. "Can you?" Li Tong looked at Wang Su cautiously, as if he was thinking seriously. Wang Su raised her chin and looked at Li Tong provocatively. Li Tong scratched his nose and said to Fangya, "I will do as you say." Chapter 44. Gift. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 44. Gift. When He Ping returned home from school and saw Li Tong, he immediately became excited. "Uncle Li." He Ping rushed into Li Tong's arms. He looked as if he had seen a relative that he had not seen for a long time. Li Tong smiled and hugged He Ping. "You've grown taller again." The uncle and nephew laughed in the courtyard as they entered the house. Li Tong was tall and strong, but he looked exceptionally young and tender. Xiao Xiang looked at Li Tong's appearance and could not help but laugh. Li Tong touched his face in embarrassment. "Ma'am, please don't laugh at me." Xiao Xiang could not help but laugh. "Ahaha. It's my fault. I didn't mean to laugh at you." Li Tong scratched his hair. "I also know that this appearance always causes misunderstandings, but there's nothing I can do about it. My parents gave birth to me." Seeing Li Tong's troubled look, Xiao Xiang comforted her. "Look at your appearance. The little girl would love you." As she said this, Fangya and Wang Su walked into the house. As soon as Wang Su entered the house, she gave Li Tong a glare. Li Tong did not know what exactly he had done to offend Wang Su. He looked at Xiao Xiang with a bitter expression. "Look. That little girl doesn't like it either." Xiao Xiang looked at Li Tong's expression and laughed even more heartily. Wang Su did not hear what Li Tong had said. She only knew that he was definitely saying bad things about her. Her expression became even uglier. talking behind my back. Li Tong looked at Wang Su innocently. By the heavens and the earth, I swear it. I didn't say bad things about you behind your back. Xiao Xiang also immediately vouched for him. I can prove it. Little Li is just wondering how to make a little girl like you like him. Xiao Xiang's words immediately made the two youths blush. Fanya looked at Wang Su's appearance, then looked at Li Tong and smiled. Li Tong, come over and help. Get ready to eat. Li Tong immediately responded and ran over, obediently helping to set the dishes. Wang Su placed the dishes on the table, turned around, and walked out. Fanya looked at Wang Su's back as she left, and said to Li Tong, this little girl isn't bad. Li Tong also stared blankly at Wang Su's back as she left. He did not understand Fanya's question and only responded with an mm. Fanya looked at Li Tong's mannerisms and the smile on her face deepened. Xiao Xiang and Fanya exchanged a look. Both women were waiting to watch a good show. At the dining table, Li Tong, who had been sitting upright the entire time, made everyone feel like a soldier. He Ping followed suit, looking obedient and sensible. After the meal, Li Tong and Fanya briefly talked about He Feng's current situation. Because it involved the details of cases with confidential complexities, Li Tong could not say too much. He only said that the case was smoother than they had expected, and they would be able to return to the country soon. Hearing Li Tong's words, the heavy stone in Fanya's heart was finally lifted. He Feng, who was supposed to return to the country 2 years later, should be able to complete the task and return to the country in 10 months if everything went smoothly. This was simply a superb speed for the big case they were investigating this time, and it would definitely make the headlines. Fanya knew that this case involved many financial frauds, and it was even related to some underground money houses and officials' corruption and bribery. However, Fanya did not know if their progress this time was as good as it was in her previous life. From Fanya's memories, although He Feng had caught a group of criminals in a swift and decisive manner, in the end, he had to release some people due to some pressure. Moreover, under the control of some forces behind the scenes, some even bigger fish got away scot-free. The case that was originally solved in 2 years only took 10 months this time. Was this case really over? Fanya had her own doubts in her heart, but it was not convenient for her to tell Li Tong too much. Li Tong was only the messenger. There were too many details of the case that he could not reveal to Fanya. Fanya did not care too much. She was already at ease the moment she heard that He Feng could return safely. He Ping held the pen that Li Tong brought back for him and could not put it down. Kid. Your father bought this specially for you. Li Tong patted He Peng's small head and said. He Peng looked at the word Peng carved on the pen and was so happy that he could not control himself. Fanya looked at He Peng's appearance and the smile on her face gradually deepened. He Feng was not a man who did not care about his children. Perhaps it was just that his ex-wife who did not understand him. Li Tong took out another beautiful dress and came in front of Tang Tang. Tang Tang, your father asked me to bring you this beautiful little dress. Tang Tang's eyes lit up when she saw the dress. Xiao Xiang took the dress and carried Tang Tang into the inner room. After a while, Tang Tang walked out of the inner room by herself. The little dress was very suitable for her. Tang Tang danced with joy. The smile on Fanya's face deepened. It turned out that He Feng was a thoughtful, meticulous man. He had not spent much time with Tang Tang, but he had remembered to bring Tang Tang a gift, and it had been such a suitable gift. Li Tong turned around to look at Fanya. Sister. Law, it's not that I'm irresponsible. Captain, he said that he wants to personally hand you your gift. Hearing Li Tong's words, Fanya's face immediately turned hot. Chapter 45. Fate. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 45. Fate. About 2 to 3 months later, the news of Fanya and He Feng's marriage had spread around the area. The women who had originally accused Fang Ye of flirting also shut up. After this period of time together, Fang Ye and Wang Su became more and more familiar with each other, and the two gradually became friends who could tell each other everything. Although Wang Su's educational level was not high, she was very smart. Fang Ye was very happy to teach her what she knew, and Wang Su had always been modest in learning. Li Tong did not return to the United States. Occasionally, he would go to the neighborhood committee to chat with Fang Ye and help Yifeng pass on a few words. At this time, Wang Su would always stay far away, as if she was avoiding a huge plague. Li Tong always showed an injured expression, looking both wronged and pitiful. Fang Ye looked at the two youths and decided to help them. However, Fang Ye still did not know how to help them. Life was peaceful and stable. Fang Ye was satisfied with everything in front of her. She even felt that when Yifeng returned, he did not need to do anything. As long as they could spend their lives together peacefully, it would be enough. However, fate always created some waves when you wished it to be calm. One morning, Xiao Xiang suddenly fainted at the kitchen door. This scared Fang Ye. Fang Ye knew that Xiao Xiang had a heart problem and had always kept an eye out. But this time, Xiao Xiang had fainted without any warning, sending a shock through Fang Ye's life. She called an ambulance and entrusted the child to the large woman. Then, Fang Ye followed Xiao Xiang into the hospital. After entering the emergency room for a brief check-up, the doctor immediately informed Fang Ye that the patient needed immediate surgery. Just like that, Xiao Xiang was sent to the operating theater because of acute myocardial infarction, less than 10 minutes after entering the hospital. Fang Ye waited nervously outside the operating theater. At that moment, the cold hospital corridor made Fang Ye feel as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. The terrible memories of the hospital from her previous life struck again. Fang Ye's entire body could not stop trembling. Fang Ye hugged herself tightly and curled up on the bench in the hospital corridor. The red light in the operating theater in front of her was always on. She did not know what the doctor had just said. She only knew that the doctor had asked her to sign a lot of things. She only remembered that sentence, "If we don't operate in time, we might not be able to save her." Fang Ye signed the consent form without hesitation and paid all the fees with the help of the nurse. She knew too well the pain of being powerless to wait for death. She did not want anyone around her to feel that kind of helplessness. Fang Ye waited quietly, her eyes never leaving that red light. After 4 hours of waiting, just as Fang Ye felt exhausted and was about to fall asleep, an arm pulled her into a warm embrace. Fang Ye raised her head, looking at the person in front of her as if she was a little unfamiliar. Yifeng lowered his head to look at Fang Ye, gently brushing away the messy hair on her forehead with some heartache. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Fang Ye's anxious heart seemed to have finally found a place that she could rely on at that moment. She slowly leaned against Yifeng's chest and let out a soft, She was really tired, cold, and scared. After another 3 hours, the doctor pushed open the door of the operating theater and walked out. Fang Ye quickly got up and walked over. Yifeng followed beside Fang Ye and did not falter behind by even half a step. The surgery was very successful. Within 48 hours, we need to observe the patient's thrombolytic and stent compatibility. But family members are needed to accompany her in the hospital, the doctor said to Fang Ye. Fang Ye nodded and said, "Thank you, doctor. Really, thank you." The doctor shook his head and heaved a sigh of relief. "It's a good thing that you guys sent her here in time. If he had been a few minutes later, I'm afraid that she would not have been able to make it." Fang Ye thanked the doctor again, and she seemed to have finally relaxed. Following that, the doctor pushed Xiao Xiang to the intensive care unit. Wu Wei had gone out of town to work, so he did not rush to the hospital until Xiao Xiang was sent to the ward. When he saw Fang Ye, Wu Wei fell to his knees with a thud. Fang Ye quickly went forward to help Wu Wei up. Wu Wei insisted on kneeling on the ground and refused to get up. "Fang Ye, I was a bastard in the past. I thank you. Thank you for saving me. For saving my mother. Fanya shook her head and smiled. Perhaps everything is fate. That's right. Perhaps everything is fate. If Xiao Xiang had not forced Fanya to marry Tang Fu, perhaps Fanya might not have been able to take out the money that saved Xiao Xiang's life. In the past, Fanya did not believe in fate, but now. Fanya turned to look at Hifeng. Perhaps everything was fated. Chapter 46. Just the right amount of warmth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 46. Just the right amount of warmth. Hifeng stayed with Fanya in the hospital for 2 days. Because Wu Wei had rushed back at the last minute, he still needed to ask for leave from the factory. It took him quite a while to get back and forth. Fanya advised him to go back to work in peace. After everything was settled, he could come back to take care of Xiao Xiang. Although Wu Wei felt guilty, he knew that Fanya's decision was the best choice at the moment. He still had a large amount of debt to repay, and his mother's future also counted on his hard work. Fanya was taking such good care of Xiao Xiang. She had been doing a better job than him. Wu Wei thanked Fanya again and returned to the city where he worked. Hifeng had just returned to the country, so he still had a lot of things to deal with. Fanya knew that she could not delay Hifeng's work, so she took leave from the neighborhood committee and focused on taking care of Xiao Xiang in the hospital. Wang Su had studied with Fanya for a period of time, so she was already able to take over most of her work. Fanya was relieved and handed the work over to Wang Su without any reservations. With Hifeng and the large woman helping out at her house, Fanya's burden was greatly eased. Just like that, Fanya took care of Xiao Xiang in the hospital for a week. Xiao Xiang finally woke up on the 3rd day after the surgery. Although the doctor said that the 48 hours was the critical period, it was impossible to determine how long it would take for one to wake up. After Xiao Xiang woke up, Fanya finally cracked and burst into tears. She had been holding herself firmly for the past few days, not allowing herself to break down, not allowing herself to be vulnerable. She needed to function, there was too much due. Xiao Xiang saw Fanya crying and wanted to reach out to help her wipe away her tears, but she could not muster the strength to do so. Fanya held Xiao Xiang's hand and gently placed it on her face. Fanya had a faint smile on her face. It's great that you're awake. Xiao Xiang opened her mouth, but she did not say anything. Over the next few days, Xiao Xiang recovered very quickly and was transferred to a normal ward. Hifeng would occasionally bring Hipeng and Tang Tang to the hospital to visit Xiao Xiang. Ms. Fang. I missed you so much. Tang Tang stood by the bedside carefully and looked at the tubes and instruments that had been inserted into Xiao Xiang's body. Xiao Xiang smiled at Tang Tang. Tang Tang, be good. I will recover very soon. I missed Tang Tang very much too. Tang Tang pouted and whispered to Xiao Xiang, you don't know this. Daddy's cooking is terrible. Xiao Xiang could not help but laugh when she heard that. Her gaze swept over to Hifeng. Hifeng naturally had heard Tang Tang's words and coughed lightly in embarrassment. The smile on Xiao Xiang's face deepened. Wait for me to come home and cook delicious food. Your cooking is the best. It's even better than mother's cooking. Tang Tang cried out happily, fully expressing her support. When Fanya heard this, she was also a little embarrassed. Tang Tang, what's so bad about mother's cooking? Tang Tang looked at Fanya aggrievedly, and then said to Xiao Xiang, Ms. Fang. Tang Tang wants to eat your cooking. The expression on Fanya's face suddenly became a little unsightly. She snorted and said, what Ms. Fang? You'll have to call her grandmother. Grandmother. Tang Tang looked at Fanya in confusion, and then turned her head to look at Xiao Xiang. When Xiao Xiang heard that, the expression on his face became a little excited and a little incredulous. That's right. Isn't mommy's mommy your grandma? Fong Ye said a matter-of-factly. Oh. Tang Tang nodded and did not feel that anything was wrong. Then, Tang Tang turned her head and smiled at Xiao Xiang. Grandma will make a lot of delicious food for Tang Tang, right? Yes. I will cook a lot of delicious food for Tang Tang and Peng Peng. Xiao Xiang said as she looked at He Peng, who was looking forward to it. He Peng's face immediately broke into a smile as well, looking as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. The happy and harmonious appearance of the family made Fong Ye feel a wave of warmth in her heart. In her previous life, she had longed for the warmth of such a family. She had worked hard to fight for a better life for herself and her daughter. However, in the end, she never got to feel such warmth. Looking at Tang Tang's glee, Fong Ye even wondered if Tang Tang would still say to her in the future, "I would rather you had never given birth to me." Fong Ye felt a surge of sadness in her heart, and tears flowed down unconsciously. He Feng noticed the change in Fong Ye's mood and quickly walked up to her, gently patting her shoulder. Xiao Xiang also saw Fong Ye's mood and asked with concern, "What's wrong with you?" Fong Ye smiled and shook her head. "I'm just very happy." Fong Ye gently grabbed He Feng's hand on her shoulder, feeling the firm warmth. Everything was just like this, just right. Chapter 47. Something happened to Tang Fu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 47. Something happened to Tang Fu. After Xiao Xiang's health improved, Fong Ye asked someone to take care of her and then went back to work. When Wang Su saw Fong Ye, she looked like she had seen her savior. "Sister Ye. Help." Fong Ye looked at Wang Su's pitiful look as she hugged the computer and could not help but laugh. Wang Su rushed to Fong Ye. "This job is too difficult. You should do it." Fong Ye smiled gently and looked at Wang Su. "Don't worry, I'll teach you slowly." Wang Su sighed and then nodded. "Okay." During lunch break, Fong Ye went home to prepare some things and planned to bring them over to Xiao Xiang after work. Before she reached her door, Fong Ye saw a person walking back and forth in front of her door. Fong Ye walked over and recognized the person. "Uncle Tang, why are you here?" "Madam." No, Miss Fong." Uncle Tang was a little agitated. "Please save my master." Fong Ye frowned. Upon seeing Uncle Tang's anxious look, she hesitated for a moment before saying, "I have nothing to do with Tang Fu anymore." She could not be soft-hearted. She had nothing to do with Tang Fu anymore. "Miss Fong, I know that master has let you down," Uncle Tang said, almost close to tears. Fong Ye felt a pang of heartache. After all, Uncle Tang had treated her quite well all these years. Fong Ye sighed and reached out to hold Uncle Tang's arm. "If there's anything, please come in and tell me." Uncle Tang wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes, nodded, and followed Fong Ye into the house. As Fong Ye went about cleaning up the courtyard, Uncle Tang could not help but sigh again. Fong Ye prepared some tea and sat down with Uncle Tang at a stone table in the courtyard. "Does Tang Fu know that you came to look for me today?" Uncle Tang shook his head. "The master doesn't know," he sighed. Uncle Tang could not help but sigh. Ever since that woman entered the house, the old master has become even more irritable. At first, I just felt that the old master's business wasn't going well and that he was simply depressed. Uncle Tang slumped over, making him look very weary. But recently, I discovered that he seemed to have joined some organization. Uncle Tang said, his brows tightly knitted together. "I don't exactly know what kind of organization it is. Those people come to our house every day." Uncle Tang shook his head and sighed. "They have made our house a mess," Uncle Tang said, looking at Fong Ye. "Madam. Miss Fong, if this goes on, something will definitely happen to master." Hearing Uncle Tang's words, Fong Ye suddenly thought of the gambling that Wu Wei had been caught up in, courtesy of Tang Fu. Fong Ye realized that the wrinkles on Uncle Tang's face seemed to have deepened, and he looked even older than before. Uncle Tang, I really can't help you with Tang Fu's matter. Fanya shook her head and said helplessly. It was not that she was heartless, but she did not want to be involved in Tang Fu's matter. Tang Fu was usually very guarded. Even though Fanya and he were husband and wife, he rarely ever told Fanya about his matters. But now, these people could openly walk into Tang Fu's home. Clearly, it had something to do with that woman. Since it was a husband and wife matter, it was a family matter. Fanya could not get involved, no matter what. When Uncle Tang heard Fanya's words, he had a troubled expression on his face. Miss Fong, I know that you must harbor a deep grudge against the master for his previous transgressions. However, I can't just watch him walk down the path of no return. Uncle Tang sounded more worried. When Fanya saw Uncle Tang's expression, her heart ached. She held Uncle Tang's hand. Uncle Tang, although I can't help, you can go and ask Lawyer Lin for help. He's Tang Fu's legal consultant. He'll definitely be able to help him solve this problem. Fanya suggested kindly. When Uncle Tang heard this, he sighed heavily again. Master quarreled with Lawyer Lin because of that woman. I'm afraid Lawyer Lin won't be able to help him now. Fanya was a little surprised by this news. In the past, Tang Fu trusted Lin Bin quite a lot. This time, how did that woman cause a rift between Lin Bin and Tang Fu? Thinking of this, Fanya could not help but frown. She did not think about it carefully in the past, but now it looked like someone was scheming against Tang Fu in the dark. Fanya could not understand it. She decided that a good chat with Lin Bin was in order. Fanya promised Uncle Tang that she would look for Lawyer Lin to discuss how to help Tang Fu. Only then did Uncle Tang finally agree to go home. After sending Uncle Tang out of the courtyard, Fanya hesitated for a moment. She went to the neighborhood committee to apply for leave and went to Lin Bin's office in the afternoon. Chapter 48. Something happened to the ex-husband. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 48. Something happened to the ex-husband, Miss Fong, long time no see. Lin Bin looked at Fanya with a faint smile on his face. Fanya did not stand on ceremony. She went straight to the point and asked, did something happen to Tang Fu? When Lin Bin heard Fanya's question, he was not surprised. He just asked, Miss Fong, are you still concerned about Mr. Tang? Fanya shook her head. I am concerned about someone who would be hurt should he get hurt. Lin Bin nodded and said sincerely, I'm afraid neither of us can help Mr. Tang in his current state. Is it that bad? Fanya asked again. The forces he's involved in this time are a little too much for him to take on. Lin Bin served Fanya a glass of water and continued. Do you know who set him up? Fanya took the glass of water and looked at Lin Bin. Lin Bin smiled playfully. How do you know it was the other party who set him up? The corner of Fanya's mouth twitched. With that brain of his, he wouldn't be able to come up with such a grand plan. Lin Bin nodded in agreement. I thought you two weren't in a good relationship. Fanya shrugged. There were no actual relationships between us whatsoever. It's just that he's not a difficult person to understand. Lin Bin thought about it for a moment and said, I warned him before, but he didn't believe me. I can't go into too much detail, but this matter is not easy to handle, Lin Bin emphasized again. Fanya saw that Lin Bin was in a difficult position, so she did not say anything more. She only nodded. I understand. Fanya chatted with Lin Bin for a while more before she left. In her previous life, although she had divorced Tang Fu, she no longer paid attention to updates concerning him. However, in her memory, she seemed to have heard someone mention that Tang Fu was soon caught in a financial fraud case and arrested. Fanya did not know the specific reason, and she did not care about it. After all, she was having a very hard time in her previous life and could not afford to be distracted even in the slightest. Fanya felt that her conscience regarding Tang Fu's matter was clear, so she did not pursue it further. When she arrived at the hospital, Fang Ye discovered that Wu Wei had also arrived. Xiao Xiang was filled with joy as she watched Wu Wei clumsily peel an apple for her. Fang Ye slowly retreated from the door. Perhaps this was the moment Xiao Xiang had been looking forward to the most in all these years. She did not want to go in and disturb the moment. After standing in the corridor for a while, Fang Ye saw He Feng walking over with something in his hands. He Feng was a little surprised to see Fang Ye standing outside the door. Fang Ye walked forward and naturally held He Feng's hand, guiding him away from the ward. Wu Wei is here. Let them stay like that for a while, Fang Ye said in a low voice. He Feng nodded in understanding and followed Fang Ye's footsteps. Have you lost weight recently? He Feng asked out of the blue. Fang Ye was a little surprised, and then she looked up at He Feng. You could tell. He Feng's face was slightly red. Yes, it's a little worrying. Fang Ye laughed out loud. I've just been a little busy recently. He Feng looked at Fang Ye with some heartache. You've been through a lot. Fang Ye shook her head and looked at He Feng with a smile. The two of them walked out of the hospital quietly and sat on the bench at the entrance. After a long while, He Feng finally spoke. Have you been in contact with Tang Fu recently? Fang Ye did not seem surprised that He Feng would mention Tang Fu. She shook her head. No, He Feng replied with an "oh," and did not speak for a long time. Fang Ye was not in a hurry. She knew that there were some things that she could not ask, and it was not convenient for He Feng to tell her. After a long while, He Feng spoke again. If Tang Fu comes looking for you, you must tell me. Fang Ye replied with an "n" and looked up at He Feng. Is Tang Fu in serious trouble? He Feng looked at Fang Ye and nodded seriously. I currently have no way to tell you about his matter. It's just that it's very complicated. Fang Ye did not ask him any further. She only said, if he comes to me, I will tell you. Also, if you need anything, you can ask his lawyer. Fang Ye recalled Lin Bin's previous words, so she told He Feng about this matter. Tang Fu's lawyer. He Feng did not seem to think that there was such a person. He hired a lawyer to deal with his financial problems. Fang Ye briefly explained Lin Bin's situation. This lawyer should be able to provide you with the materials you need, Fang Ye added. Upon hearing Fang Ye's words, He Feng suddenly felt that this lawyer should be a key figure. For some reason, He Feng felt that Fang Ye seemed to be able to see through everything and make the originally complicated and difficult distinguish case suddenly clear. Chapter 49. Great for now you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 49. Great for now when Fang Ye and He Feng returned to the ward, Wu Wei was just about to go out to fetch water. He was carrying a basin and saw Fang Ye. His face was full of smiles. Little Ye, you're here. Hearing Wu Wei's form of address, Fang Ye felt a moment of discomfort. She grinned and smiled, making way for Wu Wei. Xiao Xiang looked at Wu Wei's back as he left, smiling so much that she could not close her mouth. Fang Ye looked at Xiao Xiang's happy expression and suddenly felt that her forgiving her for her past actions had perhaps been her greatest gain. Xiao Xiang extended her hand to Fang Ye. Fang Ye smiled as she walked forward and placed her hand into Xiao Xiang's hand. Xiao Xiang held Fang Ye's hand with a grateful expression on her face. Thank you. I really mean it. Fang Ye shook her head and said sincerely, I also want to thank you for taking care of my father for me for so many years. This thank you was sincere. In the past, Fang Ye felt that Xiao Xiang had stolen her father and her family. But now that she thought about it, Xiao Xiang had paid no less for this family than she had. Even the last few years of her father's life had been in Xiao Xiang's care. And as her daughter, she had not done anything. Now that she thought about it, Fang Ye even felt a little ashamed. Wu Wei carried the water in and looked at Fang Ye. Little Ye, I've already applied for a transfer back. You've worked hard recently. I'll take good care of Mom later. Fanya smiled. We're family. There's no need to be polite. Hearing Fanya's words, Wu Wei suddenly slapped himself in the face. Fanya was shocked and looked at Wu Wei in surprise. Wu Wei sighed and said, I'm the one who let you down. I shouldn't have listened to Tang Fu. I shouldn't have treated you like that. Fanya knew that Wu Wei's confession was sincere. She smiled and said, it doesn't matter. It's all in the past. Wu Wei suddenly turned to look at He Feng and said, Captain He, you're the cop here. I have something to report. I have insider information. When He Feng heard this, he immediately straightened his face. Okay. Tell me. Wu Wei turned to face He Feng and said, I went to Tang Fu's house once and saw two men. One of them called him Chief Lu, Wu Wei recalled. He was a tall and thin man wearing glasses. Chief Lu. He Feng frowned and looked at Wu Wei. Are you sure? Of course not. It was my first time ever seeing this person called Chief Lu. But I've made sure to commit his face to memory. Wu Wei said with certainty. Fanya tried to recall it in her mind, but she had no impression of this Chief Lu. Wu Wei thought for a moment and continued, I didn't hear what they talked about, but I think they said something about an overseas account. He Feng's expression became even more serious. Are you sure you didn't mishear it? Wu Wei immediately raised his right hand beside his head and said solemnly, I swear it. That's what I heard. He Feng said to Fanya and Xiao Xiang, I have to bring Wu Wei back to make a statement. You guys rest well. After saying that, He Feng pulled Wu Wei and walked out. Wu Wei did not struggle. As he was dragged along by He Feng, he turned and said to Fanya, then I'll leave my mother to you. Fanya and Xiao Xiang watched as the two of them walked out. Xiao Xiang looked at Fanya worriedly. Are you all right? Fanya shook her head. Wu Wei did nothing wrong. He's only cooperating with the investigation. Xiao Xiang then turned around and leaned against the window. Then, she asked worriedly, then, will those bad guys find Wu Wei? Fanya gently patted Xiao Xiang's hand. Don't worry. The police will not leak any information about Wu Wei. Xiao Xiang still felt a little uneasy, but she also knew that there was no point in continuing to ask. Fanya looked in the direction of the door. Perhaps Wu Wei will be the key to solving this case. He Feng brought Wu Wei to the police station and recorded everything that Wu Wei had heard that day and what else he knew. After Wu Wei signed the document, he smiled at He Feng. Why do I feel so good letting this out? It's like a weight being lifted from my heart. He Feng looked at Wu Wei and said, take good care of your mother in the future. Wu Wei put his palms together and said to He Feng, it's been my good fortune to have Fanya as my sister. Having you as my brother.in.law is the icing on the cake. Hearing Wu Wei call him brother.in.law, He Feng was suddenly delighted. He patted Wu Wei on the shoulder and said, let me know if there's anything in the future. I'll definitely help you if I can. Wu Wei gave He Feng a thumbs up. I will be great for now. Chapter 50. The most comfortable way to get along. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 50. The most comfortable way to get along. Fanya returned home and picked up Tang Tang from the large woman's house. Mom, I dreamed about Dad today. Tang Tang held Fanya's hand and looked up at her. When Fanya heard Tang Tang's words, her heart moved slightly. Do you miss your dad? Tang Tang shook her head. No, then what did Tang Tang dream about? Fanya looked at Tang Tang and asked. Tang Tang pursed her lips and said, Daddy was being very angry and terrifying. I was very afraid. Hearing Tang Tang's words, Fanya's heart suddenly clenched. She hugged Tang Tang tightly. Daddy will never terrify you again. Don't be afraid. Tang Tang also hugged Fanya tightly. Don't be afraid either, Mommy. Fanya's heart softened and she comforted her softly. Fong Yet did not know why Tang Tang would say such a thing. She had never shown her weakness in front of her daughter, and she had never told Tang Tang about Tang Fu. But now, it seemed that Tang Tang had already seen everything. It was not that she did not know anything, but she had never said anything. Tang Tang gently patted Fong Ye's back. "Mom, is Uncle He my new dad?" Fong Ye let go of Tang Tang and said to her face to face, "Yes." "Would you like Uncle He to be your new daddy?" Tang Tang nodded heavily. "Yes." Fong Ye smiled and said, "In that case, let Uncle He your daddy from now on." "Tang Tang, don't be afraid of daddy anymore, okay?" "Yes." Tang Tang answered happily, as if the anchor in her heart had finally been released. Not long after, He Peng came back from school. He walked up to Fong Ye and hesitated. Fong Ye looked at He Peng's somewhat awkward appearance and asked gently, "Do you have something to tell me?" Hearing Fong Ye's question, He Peng seemed to have finally made up his mind. "Aunt Fong, can you hold a parent teacher meeting for me?" As if afraid that Fong Ye would refuse, He Peng immediately added, "Father is very busy and doesn't have time, so." Fong Ye smiled and said, "Sure." When He Peng heard that Fong Ye agreed, his eyes immediately lit up. "Next Friday afternoon." "Okay. I'll be there." Fong Ye's smile became even more gentle. He Peng felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He put his school bag aside and immediately carried Tang Tang. Tang Tang was caught off guard and was carried around in circles. She immediately giggled non-stop. Fong Ye looked at the happy faces of the two children and felt a wave of warmth. Ever since He Feng returned from abroad, he had also moved to Fong Ye's house for the time being. This was because He Peng was already used to living in Fong Ye's house and they were closer to school. Fong Ye and He Feng discussed about it and decided to let He Peng stay here for the time being. He Feng and He Peng lived together in a small house in the middle. Although the two of them had already received their marriage certificate, they did not have any further contact. Fong Ye did not know what He Feng was thinking, but it also slightly eased some of his nervousness. Although Fong Ye was married, she was not familiar with the way couples got along. Tang Fu was a person who thought that men were superior to women. Although he used to like Fong Ye's appearance, he paid her some attention whenever she changed her appearance or freshened up. As for the couple's life, ever since she had Tang Tang, Fong Ye had refused to get along with Tang Fu, let alone participate in more intimate behavior. Fong Ye sometimes thought that this was probably the reason why Tang Fu was so determined to divorce her. In her previous life, Fong Ye often considered herself a victim and felt that she was the most wronged one in this marriage. When she was determined not to take any money away, she had also taken great foolish pride in it. But in the end, everything was slammed aside by reality. In this life, Fong Ye had more time to think about her future. She had also seen many details that she had not seen in her previous life. Perhaps, there was not so much right and wrong between husband and wife. They simply shared no love whatsoever. Therefore, this time with He Feng's marriage, Fong Ye was not in a hurry to succeed. For her, this marriage was just the right fit. In terms of bonding, it was too early. He Feng seemed to have the same thoughts as her. Although the two of them occasionally appreciated each other, they did not speak much, let alone establish any actual courtship. Fong Ye liked the current pace. While they were newlyweds, they were more like friends living under the same roof. He Feng saw Fong Ye busying herself in the kitchen and wanted to help. "Is there anything I can do?" Fong Ye looked back at He Feng. He was rolling up his sleeves, looking like he was going to do something big.